This is Mike Shoemake with one more video on some test taking tips. We're going to go over a couple of really quick tips that I think will be very helpful. Uh, in the words of Coach Kelly, a good friend of mine in the education system, you think long, you think wrong. Usually, your first choice is the right one, unless you misread the question. Go with your first instinct. That instinct is important because, as I said earlier, your brain is talking to you. Your brain is saying, I just read this. I just read this. I know how to do this. Sometimes you don't feel as confident as you should, but your brain knows the answer. And when it reads those four, your first instinct is an important hint on what might be the right answer. So you think long, you think wrong. Your next tip. If you narrow it down to 50-50, remember our first tip was narrow it down, narrow it down. If you narrow it down to 50-50, choose the longer of the two answers. Why? Well, because again, these are just human beings who are on the other end of this test writing these questions trying to stump you and see what you know. They're just human beings. They're going to put more effort into writing the right answer than they are in writing the three wrong choices. That's just human nature. So chances are, and that tends to be the case more so for teacher-made exams than it is for professional-made exams like the EOC. Maybe that's just something to remember and keep in mind for multiple choice tests. But typically, the longer the answer, the more effort went into writing it, it's probably the right one. So remember, the people writing these tests are human. They're human on the other end of this thing. Now, last thing I want to go over here is these bold words. Best. Look, best. Most emphasized. Best. What this is saying is that these are going to be tricky choices. Main purpose. What is the main purpose of this selection? Implies that there might be more than one purpose of the selection, and more than one of these answers might work, might be arguable. If you're that AG student who's always up in front of the teacher's desk arguing about a couple of points on the test, you might have been able to argue that more than one of these is correct. But you're not going to have that option with this multiple choice test. So what you have to focus on is the main purpose, the best answer. Focus on the bold words like not, accept, best, main. Very, very important that you do that. Let's get an example of that. Most of these teachings are given to us by fact and not interpretation, for Early has chosen in his narration to mirror the simplicity of his plot. Not for him the bossy instruction of an interfering omniscience. Better just to throw the new baseball and let it lie there uncaught, representing love and failure and near everything in between. There is no ironic distance between Jim's consciousness and Early's depiction of it, nor, for that matter, between Jim's and our own. The trick and fineness of Jim the Boy is to transport the reader to the early glimmerings of wisdom, the days in youth when the world actually began to make some kind of thematic sense simply because of what you perceived. It's not always easy to remember such primal education, of course. The day when hurt translated into caution, say, or shame became a highway marker for the path toward responsibility. Jim stumbles through each of these human tasks with a wide open heart and all the fallibilities of boyhood, guided as gently and silently by his creator as he is by his caretakers. All right, very interesting. Now let's take a look here. Based on paragraph 5, that's the one we just read, which experience would the author most likely consider an example of a child's primal education? First book, first tooth lost, receiving a catcher's mitt, first betrayal by a friend. I think you can see most likely it would be D, because that lines up with the author's examples. But I think that it could be argued that more than one of these could be the author's primal education. I hope that's a good example. This is Mike Shoemake. Thanks for paying attention.